Hello, everyone. First of all, thank you for invitation me here, and it's a very important project, I can say, and I think that we will see more results of our research and these events. Because I remember that about 2 years ago we discussed whether establishing of the tribunal is possible or not, but now it's reality, and I think that we will see more results of our research. Now, my presentation dedicated to forced deportation of Ukrainians to Georgia by Russia, and I have a lot of information, not only about this deportation, because you know that the key to understand of contemporary situation or modernity, you should know history. And let's start from history. Yes, and forced deportations now by Russia is not accidental, and it's just Russia continues as a successor of Soviet Union and Tsarist Russia, but it continues such. The forced deportation as a weapon, and you can see that the forced very important is very important to mention about Circassian genocide. It was in 19th century, but there was a war, so-called Russia Circassian or Caucasian War, when in 1864 there was a genocide of Circassians, and about 625,000 Circassians were killed, and other about 2 million were forced relocated, and they went to Ottoman Empire. But there were two waves of the genocide, and later in 1878 also was the second phase of persecution of Circassians. And now here is a map where the Circassians lived. It was along after Georgia, and for example Sochi and other cities. There were the Circassians lived there, but now there is no any. But Circassians now lived in Turkey and maybe in the several other countries, but not in Russia at all. It's one second one. It's the kulakization. Maybe you know, kulaks were the clergies, small economic elites, and former royal officials, and so on, and they were so-called elites in the countryside, and starting from 1920s until early 1930s, the Soviet Union, Lenin, and after Stalin, fighting against kulaks. Why? And they about 2 and 3 million were deported to Siberia and northern in Ural and so on, and most of them were Ukrainians, because Soviet Union fighted not against kulaks or some elites, but people from countryside, because in countryside, you know, people live more with traditions, and people are more patriotic, and because the Soviet Union wanted to destroy this. And after, you know, that was after this dekulakization in 1933 until 1993, and after was Holodomor in Ukraine, and also the Soviet Union fight it against population against Ukraine at the time, and where people were more patriotic. And you can see here the data about how many people were killed and how many were forced replaced. And the pictures, there are propaganda from that time in Soviet Union, how the men, like a kulak, they show that kulaks are very rich people, and they don't like the ordinary people, and so on. Next is Korean case. It's very important that in Russia, in east border with Korea, there lived many Koreans, and 200,000 Koreans were replaced, and there is also a map where they were settled after this deportation. And you can imagine that we talked about thousands and thousands people, not about 100 or 200 or so, thousands and thousands. Here, Koreans, maybe most of you don't know that Koreans lived and that such a problem was with Koreans, but yes, in 1937, Koreans people were deported in Asia, in Middle Asia, Kyrgyzstan, Astrakhan, and so on. After also Czechoslovakia, it's genocide. I can say ethnic cleansing of Chechen and Chechen people mostly, well, against Wynach people. Wynachs are Chechens and English together are called as Wynach. And this operation Czechoslovakia comes from not Chechens, and because they called it so. And he was led by Laurent Iberia, the boss of NKVD at that time. And in one night, about 500,000 Chechens and English were about 100,000, and other were Chechens, and they were deported to Kyrgyzstan, Kazakhstan, and Ural, and so on. Yes, and people, Chechens lived in Middle Asia about 13 years. And after when Khrushchev came in charge, after he allowed the Chechen people to go back their homes. Next, then and other deportations, Soviet deportations. It's many cases. For example, Karachais in 1943, Karachais were deported, and also Kalmyks. In 1944, Crimean Tatars, and it was 45% of entire ethnic group were deported, and Balkars, and also Crimean Bulgars, Armenians, Greeks. From Georgia, Meskhetian Turks were also deported in east part of Soviet Union, about 100,000 people. They were Muslim Georgians, but some of them were Muslim Georgians or Muslim Turks, and they lived in south of Georgia and along the border with Turkey, and they were sent to east part of so in middle of Asia. And after Soviet Union, but sometimes we like to talk about Russia, that in the early 90s Russia was more democratic and Helsinki was democratic and so on. But it's false. Why? Because in early 90s in Georgia was ethnic cleansing, and 350,000 people were forced to go from Abkhazia, out of Abkhazia, and 240,000 were Georgians. And it was 70% of population of Abkhazia. You know, and after in 2006 and 7, Georgians who lived in Russia, but officially lived in Russia, they were forced, also deported to Georgia, and it was more than about 5,000 people, and about 150, not about, definitely 150 were deported by cargo plane. You know, and one died in this process. And after there is a case of Court of Human Rights in 2019, case of Georgia against Russia. First decision was in 1914, but after about compensation was a decision in 2019, and the court ordered Russia to pay 10 million euros, but still now we're waiting this money. And Russia does not think to pay anything to former colonies, or maybe sometimes contemporary colonies. And after in 2008, there was Russian invasion of Georgia, and that time also 23,000 Georgians were forced fled the region. It's South Ossetia, so-called, and still now there are no Georgians, and all some villages where lived Georgia were totally destroyed by Russian forces and also by Ossetian separatists. It's and after deportations from occupied Ukraine, occupied territories of Ukraine, about there are different numbers, because official some government or some representatives of government or some agencies and so on have different numbers, but starting from 1.2 million to 2.8 million people had been deported to Russia. And from them, also the number is not clear, but starting from 200,000 to 250, starting from 20,000 to 240,000 are children. And you know that in 2023, ICC, International Criminal Court, adopted arrest warrants for Vladimir Putin and Maria Lvova-Belova for this crime against the children, for deportation of children. Russia established so-called filtration centers in occupied territories. And when the people who are citizens of Ukraine, first time they are in filtration centers, and in filtration centers, people registered, photographed, fingerprinted, interrogated, and so on, to know everything about this person. And after the Russians distinguish these people, and after sent in different regions, or after they decide where should be sent this person, in middle of Russia, or maybe withdraw from Russia, or so on. And the regions where people usually, and children also are spread are Buryatia, Zabaikalsky Krai, Primorsky Krai, Khabarovsk, and so on. And there is a map where it's mentioned these regions, Russian regions.
And Professor, could you please remember about the time limits?
Thank you. I try to be more faster, and there is information about the Dariani crisis when Ukrainian citizens were deported to Georgia, but most of them were former criminals, former prisoners, and but most of them did not have any documents. Russia sent them out of the border with Georgia, and after without any documents. Most of them did not have any document, and of course they were not able to enter Georgian border, and they were stopped in the checkpoint, but it was neutral zone. But in the zone there is some building, but it was not for people. So just to stay there 1 or 2 days, and for few people. But and you can see here that. There were just 16 beds, and after the BBC wrote that after were added 40 beds, but the people here were about 100, and starting from June 5 of this year, and for 2 months. About 100 people stay there, but they have maximum 56 beds. And situation there were very badly, because not only because of beds, but also there was a small room without any windows, and they were not allowed to go outside of this room, and they did not have enough food or water and every medicine and so on, and no one cared about them. Just there were 2 NGOs who operated in Georgia. They are volunteers Tbilisi and for the protection of Ukrainian prisoners, who delivered food and water and so on and so on, medicine and so on. Once also Cross Red also delivered something, but it was just accidental behavior, and this also the once or sometimes police officers also gave them some food, but it was just accidental. And we can say that Georgian government did not care about these people. And it's important also to mention that there were 10 women. And they did not have special needs as women anything, and they were without some special needs. Legal obligation of Georgia, as I mentioned, these people were in buffer zone. This zone does not belong to Georgia or Russia, but we know that if any country some operates in this territory, it have some obligations, and because of this, buffer zone does not justify Georgia inaction, and that it did not care about these people. But regarding the temporary detention of the people, if the country has a legitimate reason, it is possible, and this reason is identity verification, identity verification of the person, and most of them these people needed the verification, and directly the Ukrainian consulate in Tbilisi were involved in this process, and they tried to verify the person, and after they adopted some document for them, and after that the people were allowed to enter Georgia and after go to Ukraine, but some of them stayed in Tbilisi because they were very ill, and they were transferred to clinic. Yeah.
Professor, could you please summarize?
And yes, and last one about Russia. We started with Russia, and yes. International law explicitly prohibits deportation, enforced deportation, and mass deportation, of course, and it's first Geneva Convention of 1994, Rome Statute of ICC of 1998, and also case law of European Court of Human Rights and European human rights, European Convention of Human Rights, and forced deportation as a weapon. What is the purpose of Russia to do this? There are several, as scientists mentioned, there are several reasons, then several purposes. One is demographic engineering, to change the demographic situation in the occupied territories. But in the past, as we saw, also people were forced to deported from border territories along the borders. People was clean these territories from the other national. Punishing or neutralizing unreliable population. I did not mention, but it was written here that Putin adopted in 2023 some order that the people the Ukrainian people had he gives the option to get a Russian citizenship until 2001 June 1st or July 1st of 2024, and after Russian government could withdraw them with some reasons, but also unreliable people. If the person get Russian citizenship, but he moved, he was involved in anti-Russian demonstration or something that he also it is and still today it's possible to withdraw this person, deport this person forced. And next purpose is provoking new political tension in neighboring countries or maintaining old ones. And last purpose is leverage against Ukraine and the West, because by the deportation, Russia demonstrates control over, as scientists wrote, demonstrates control over their fate and signaling its capacity to obstruct humanitarian norms. And I believe that in the near future, Russia will be judged also for these crimes. But it's not enough because it made much more crimes. I'm sorry, but.